There was a time in my life when I didn't know what bipolar disorder was. That's still so crazy for me to say out loud, and it's especially hard to fathom when I consider the fact that it has consumed my life for so many years. I never imagined I would wake up to collect calls from my son in prison, asking for bail, and I never saw myself in this position. Yet here I am.
So today we have Charlotte coming on to talk about the struggle she faced raising her son, Mark, who had bipolar disorder, and talking about her upcoming book, discussing all that. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess let's start with, tell us about Mark's childhood.
Sure. So for a while, we didn't even realize that Mark was sick at all. He seemed very normal as a kid. If anything, he seemed to be excelling when it came to school and track, and he always had friends. He was always very popular. In junior high, he was on the honor roll. Like I said, he was a track star, and by the time he was in his 20s, he was going to pursue a postgraduate degree for film. So it seemed like there were a lot of things in line. Like obviously he wasn't perfect and he had his difficulties, but we didn't know they were outside of the realm of like typical adolescence.
Interesting. So in your chapter, Coughlin, what happened exactly? Can you discuss that a little?
Yes, so this was definitely an emotional roller coaster.
So Charlotte, looking back now that you know Mark had bipolar disorder, but prior to that, when you didn't know, did you notice anything in particular that sticks out now? Like that all makes sense and stuff? Like what were some of the first experiences you had?
Well, I think that's something I did a lot in the beginning, looking back in hindsight and trying to piece together what in his life could have been because of his disorder. And when he was younger, he used to have all these different night terrors, and I kind of used to wonder, could that have been a result of him being bipolar? But I think the biggest thing for me was one day he came into the kitchen where I was with my husband, Houston, and he told us that he was going on a trip with his friends and he was taking the family Jeep, and like he didn't even ask, he just assumed that would have been okay. So when we told him no, his response was explosive. He went into this completely manic and crazed state, and he was yelling and calling me things that no one should ever call their mother. It actually resulted in him running away from home for a while. But I think the craziest thing was when we got a phone call from him, he was so sorry, and when he apologized, it was almost as if it had never happened. It was just such an out-of-body experience.
So what ended up exactly happening after you guys got the results of the psych evaluation?
Unfortunately, not much. We were able to find out that Mark did indeed have type 1 bipolar disorder. But even upon learning that, he didn't really want to do anything. He just went home to his wife and kids, didn't want to seek treatment. But I guess it was a blessing that we ended up finding out that, yes, there was an issue and we knew exactly what it was.
So Charlotte, have you ever had any experiences where you felt in fear of your own life from your own son? Charlotte?
Oh, can we move on to the next question?
Yeah. Which point, or did you ever have a point where you realized like, okay, this is more than just like him rebelling, like this is like something went off in your head where you had like an idea something was off?
It was the craziest thing. I was with my husband and we had been at home and we got a call from my father. He said he thought that Mark had been in trouble. Mark had called him apparently, so he forwarded us the number. When we called that number, we found out that Mark was at a phone booth way far away from his house, and he sounded a little bit hysterical almost, and he was saying really bizarre things to me. He said, "Mom, I can't see them, but I know they're watching me." And in that moment, we knew that something wasn't right and that one of us needed to be there to give him help. We didn't really have any friends in LA, but we did know one woman, and we were able to give her a call and see if she would be okay with going to get Mark and be with him until one of us was able to get there. And it was a right place, right time scenario, and she was able to do it for us. So she went and picked him up. Houston, my husband, bought a plane ticket and was able to fly out to go see Mark. And from there, we just took him and we were able to get him the psychiatric help and evaluation that he needed in that moment. And from that, we were able to know that he does have type 1 bipolar disorder. And while we were able to get information about what his disability was, he actually didn't want to end up getting help at that point, so he just ended up going home. But I guess the bright side was we were finally able to diagnose and know exactly what was wrong with him in that moment.
Charlotte, thank you for coming on, talking to us, giving us a little insight about your life and whatnot. So I guess the big question we all have now is, where do you go forward from here?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's been my pleasure. I guess from here, we're just going to take it day by day. My psychiatrist always tells my husband and I that as much influence that we want to have, it's really up to Mark, how much we're able to help him and how much change he makes. So I think he's already made some amazing strides, but I'll always be here for him whenever he needs my help. But from here, I guess it's just up to him and how he lives his life. Kind of just reminds me of this poem that he once wrote. I will love you until God dies. Your eyes' innocence teaches me beauty and simplicity, and depth and newness. With a glance you spell my worth, make my heart rejoice at knowing that each beat now has reason and meaning. When this life is through, we will embrace, hold hands, laugh again together, under always clear skies, and love one another until God dies.
Anything you've ever seen, jump right in.